Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, where all things football are injected right to your veins, with your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller. Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. We have hit episode 40, and tonight we have a special one for you once again. Joining us tonight, we have the co-owner of DLF Football. By the way, just recently, I threw a tweet up there seeing if you guys would even notice if I put DLF in my profile. The guy said go ahead and do it, so it'll probably take us a while before we catch on, so I thought I'd give you a heads up there.
Hey.
Dynasty writer, innovator, commish, one of the greatest commissions currently in the Twitterverse. There's a very select few that are kind of held in a higher regard, and our guest, Ryan McDowell, is definitely one of them. Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some football and maybe some other stuff too with you guys.
Absolutely. We're more about talking about the other stuff more so than the football right now. The point of series has been, and anyone who's been paying attention right now, it's been more about behind the grind. Well, basically that's what it is, because that's what we're called right now, is behind the grind, talking about the stories behind the stories, the work that goes in behind the scenes that nobody realizes, how much work everyone puts in the offseason, because it's not just you and me and anyone else. Everyone who's working right now is putting work in at this time. So we want to make sure we acknowledge what kind of work has to go in to continue to go in to have success in this industry, if that's what someone's looking to do. Calvin.
Yeah, well, I guess, Ryan, we have to kind of do our obligatory football talk here. And we had a pretty important game yesterday. So, just I guess my main question after watching yesterday is there any team in the NFL that Tom Brady could not have led to a championship?
Man, this guy is unreal. I think we kind of get lost in the moment of what we're really seeing. That, I mean, the GOAT and all of that is thrown around, but I mean, just when you look at the numbers and what he's been able to do, it really is unreal, unbelievable. So I'm not a big Brady fan, but you have to. Whether you're cheering for him or not, whether you're a fan, you have to appreciate everything that he's done. So, yeah, I mean, there might be one or two teams that he wouldn't have won a title for, but I mean, he obviously made a good choice. But the Buccaneers were not the only one. I think he could have gone a couple of different directions and maybe seen a similar result. He was certainly wise to get out of the AFC, though.
So Ryan, as a Niners fan, I looked back and at last year, I want to say March around then, and Niners Twitterverse all said, "Oh, we don't want Brady. He's old. He's washed. We want Jimmy G. We don't want Brady." Yeah,
man. I think Dynasty players have kind of done that same thing for a long time. I mean, for me, it always goes back to Dynasty football, but. I mean, for almost as long as I can remember, Dynasty players have not wanted Brady because he's so close to retirement. And of course, we just, we've looked kind of foolish on that one. He just keeps performing. So we'll see what happens to his Dynasty value this offseason. It sounds like he's not going anywhere. Already declared that he's going to be back. They're going to try to run it back. I don't know. Should be fun.
What do you think? 2 more years? 3 more? 5?
At this point, we can't even predict, but two sounds about right. I mean, I think the contract he signed was 2 years, so I guess he has 1 left on that. But I mean, he's obviously kind of naming his own terms at this point.
And it's a good chance that whenever he comes back, if he comes back 2-3 years, he's probably bringing Gronk along with him.
Well, that was the smartest thing he did, really. I mean, I heard someone on a pod compare it to the way the NBA works, that these players get deals balled out and, they follow LeBron or they follow they follow these superstars hoping to get a ring. And that's really what we saw. I mean, Gronk came back and Antonio Brown, and it worked out for Fournette, who I really think Fournette, from a fantasy standpoint, was the big winner of the entire playoffs. So, all of those guys joining the team after Brady, what a story.
Well, Fournette was okay. I want to ask this question: who's more like LeGarrette Blount in this situation? Would you call Leonard Fournette more like LeGarrette Blount, or LaShawn McCoy, who's now won back-to-back Super Bowls and not played in either game?
I don't know. I don't know about that. The McCoy thing, teams should be lining up to sign him, right? At this point, maybe he's some kind of good luck charm or something. But Fournette's a great story. He got bashed a lot last offseason, and probably rightfully so. I mean, he certainly brought a lot of that on himself with some of his choices and behaviors and things, but glad to see him turn it around too.
And you mentioned from a fantasy standpoint, but just from a real life standpoint, I mean, the guy was on the Jaguars to start the year, got cut from a team that went 1-15 and wound up playing a really significant role. Like, there was a chance, like, if it's not Tom Brady, there's a chance that Super Bowl playoff Lenny was the MVP last night. I mean, he honestly throughout the playoffs looked great.
Right. I definitely think you can make a case that and I don't think, there is no such thing, but if you're looking at the MVP of the entire playoff run for a certain team, for the champion, he's got a strong case. We're never going against Brady for those MVP trophies, but Fournette, he's had a great run, and there was a point in the even after he landed with Tampa Bay, there was a point I thought, this might be it for him. He's not really standing out. He already got cut by the worst team in the league. He might be out of the league in 2021, and that's definitely not going to be the case at this point.
Speaking of leagues here, I'm on the clock right now, Ryan. I'm going to let you make this selection in a super flex league.
Do it. All
right. I'm picking at the 6th spot out of a 12-team super flex tight end 0.5 premium here. Jeff brings it up. We've watched Mahomes, we've watched Watson, we watched Herbert, Kyler Murray, and Josh Allen all come off the board. I'm sitting here and I've got my pick of any of the running backs, and I've still got Dak Prescott sitting there staring at me. Super flex.
Oh. Let's see, man. Superflex Dynasty. This is a startup, I'm assuming.
This is a startup, and Bob Gilchrist is picking right after me, and he's a huge Patriots fan. Luckily, there's nothing on the board I'm considering at the Patriots here.
There won't be for a while. Sorry, Bob. Let's see. Tell me, those quarterbacks are who's gone already? Is Herbert available?
Herbert actually went third to Tyler.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at our ADP data. Yeah, let me check out the board here.
So this is on
no, you got to go Lamar. I mean, you got to go Lamar. I think
you got to take Lamar over Dak.
Yeah, I mean, I would. We don't know exactly where Dak is playing right now or next year, right? The Cowboys released their 2021 hype video with no Dak in it. It's not looking good. I don't know what those teams in Texas just their PR is not great right now between Dallas and Houston.
All right, we're locking in Lamar Jackson here.
Hey, you got to go with your gut here, but that's the way I'd go.
Do you think Lamar will work with anybody this offseason and work on mechanics?
I don't know. It was a disappointing year from that standpoint because it did feel like he took a step back, but at the same time, I don't know that his front office helped him too much as far as bringing in any weapons. So, that has to be the priority. I like Marquise Brown. He's fine, but he's not a wide receiver one on a real contender. And So I think that's got to be the priority to get a legit, big-bodied wideout.
And we mentioned earlier, Jeff kind of mentioned you were on there talking. Talk a little bit all gas with Ray G there, and we know this draft coming up, there's going to be some wide receiver options for teams, especially a team such as Baltimore, who could be looking for that alpha wide receiver. And who knows, maybe a guy like Bateman drops down to him, who would be a huge addition to that lineup.
Yeah, I think that would be about the range that we would see him go. That's they've got the 27th pick, and they're going to have some options, just due to the depth of the wide receiver class. So, I mean, honestly, even if they're waiting until round 2, I think they would have some nice choices. So, they're in a good position. I mean, it felt like such a down year, but really, they're still one of the top handful of teams in the league, and seems like they have some room for growth still.
We talked about Leonard Fournette earlier, and obviously he did a lot for himself over the playoffs here, and I think you would expect him, to have risen in ADP this playoffs. But there's other players who are moving up, moving down. What are you kind of seeing in terms of ADP as your biggest risers and fallers?
So yeah, we will actually start collecting our February ADP tomorrow for DLF. We've got the big MFL rollover, which means rookies are added. I'm excited. One of the big days of the fantasy season for me. But I feel like there's some pretty clear players that we'll see either moving up or down, just based on the news, based on what we saw in the playoffs. Obviously, the big trade a couple weeks ago, I think Stafford moves up. I think Goff moves down. To me, that's pretty clear. Cam Akers, we're going to see move up. He was RB14 in our ADP last month. I won't be surprised if he's in that 10 range, even with the rookies added. That's the thing. We're going to see a lot of these players. I mean, players in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, they're going to drop in ADP because now we're sticking in 10 rookie wide receivers, a couple running backs, some quarterbacks, if you're talking about super flex ADP. So we're going to have a lot of ADP fallers from January to February just because of those rookies. But yeah, we'll have some guys still gaining as well. I mean, I think Laviska Shenault continues to rise. His ADP of wide receiver 30 was his highest all season, or since his debut to the league. Joe Mixon was RB19 last month. I was really shocked by that. I think he kind of bounces back, and that's what we see in the offseason. Not just that these young players begin to gain value and the veterans fall, but we start to overcorrect for the injuries. So I think Michael Thomas will move up a little. I think Joe Mixon will move up a little from the fall that they had because of those injuries. The one I'm really interested to see is Jalen Hurts, because in our data, he was already quarterback 11. It's hard to see him gaining much on that, even though the news has been pretty positive for him as far as the potential Wentz trade, and looks like that might be Jalen Hurts' job. But already at quarterback 11, I don't know if there's much meat on the bone there. And as far as fallers, already talked about Goff. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a pretty obvious one. He was still RB11. I just don't think he's deserving of that value at this point. Still like him. If he's cheap, I'm buying, but that's a little too expensive for me. A couple other rookie wide receivers that I think we probably just got too aggressive on. Ayuk was wide receiver 20, and T. Higgins was wide receiver 14. I think both of those guys could fall a little bit.
I'm gonna I see Jeff shaking his head there because he's a big time Ayuk guy, so he's gonna want to chime in real quick on that one.
Oh no, no slander on Brandon Ayuk. Come on, but I get it with who knows who our quarterback is.
So this is actually a very unique panel here, and Calvin, you got to come up with something because Ryan's just getting over his illness right now. Jeff's just getting out of surgery. I'm hiding from my wife on her anniversary. She's upstairs right now, and I'm downstairs. So there may be a murder to report. So you are all my witnesses. It's our anniversary right now. So we just put the kids to bed. She's ready to go to sleep because when you got as many kids as I do, it's you're done by like 8 o'clock. You are done. You're wiped. It's bedtime. So that's
Matt,
where we are right now.
You might have made a bad choice here. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, you can tell that Ryan hasn't watched any of our previous shows because I'm all about the bad choices.
This is true.
I don't know if I've
I
made
should have said another bad choice.
Yeah, it's kind of like a string of things that kind of go down. I haven't made a bad choice I didn't like. Let's put it that way. So, one of the big things here we're talking about, and we're going to tie into this a little bit later, but I run a playoff commission. I commission a playoff league that basically we do a lot of charity out of it. It's very basic, very standard. PPR, single quarterback, obviously, because it's one of those elimination. What do you call those? One and done kind of thing. So you can use a player once and they're done. Is there any special twist that you would add to that, or is that kind of like that's kind of where it's maxed out? Would you go 2 and done, like allow people to use a guy 2 times in this kind of a league, or would you throw a little extra on the tight end, maybe, or how would you spice it up?
Well, I think it kind of depends on your goal, I guess. It sounds like you're doing it for charity. You want some mass appeal here, right? To get as many folks interested as you can. Because of that, I probably wouldn't change much. And honestly, every time I've tried in playoff fantasy, I've been terrible. I just has not been a strength of mine at all. But this year, I kind of turned that around. We came up with somewhat of a new league concept in midseason. I combined a vampire league with a guillotine league, and so basically, if you won the week, you got to steal a player. So that's the vampire part. If you were the lowest scoring team in the league, you were eliminated. That's the guillotine part. And then each week we had a draft. So we were drafting from the eliminated teams, players, plus the waiver wire. Anybody that was out there could be drafted. And that ended up being a really fun league that we played out from. We started week 6 or 7 or so and played it through the end of the regular season. John Bosch won that one, and we decided to try it in the playoffs. So we actually only had 5 teams, with one team being eliminated each week of the playoffs, and then the last man standing, of course. And Bosch made the finals of that one against me, and I pulled it out. I had Leonard Fournette, I had Tom Brady. Those were not the guys who I expected to carry me to a title, but they did it. So we called that Sniper Active. That was a pretty fun format. We're going to try it again next year, starting in week 1. But that if you want to go really crazy, something like that. But again, for your purposes, I think you're on the right track here.
I can definitely relate to you for not having a lot of success in the playoff format. That's definitely very different from what we typically do, for sure. But so I want to turn the page a little bit and get to know Ryan a little bit. So this is something I've been asking everybody. I'm making a playlist with this here. So let's say you are a pro wrestler or a closer in baseball, and
Okay.
you're about to come out either down to the ring or down to the mound, and your music hits. What is your intro music?
Man, that's a good one. I'm not a wrestling guy, but I used to be. It's been a long time. I need to maybe get back into it. My son is 13, so it's probably about time to introduce him to that world. But yeah, I've got the hat on here. I'm a big Yankees fan, so I'm just going to steal from my guy Mariano and say Enter Sandman. I think that one works pretty well. And man, whether you're a baseball player or a wrestler, like that song is great no matter what the situation is.
I think that's going to be one of the top 2 closer pops out there. Rivera's Enter Sandman, and then Hell's Bells kicking in.
Oh yeah,
is another one of those ones that you heard. I can't remember who the closer was. I think he was with it wasn't Hoffman, was it? With San Diego? I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it was as soon as you knew it was over. As soon as the guy came in, you knew it was over. And when Rivera came in, that game was done. There was your opposing opposition was going to sleep. Let's put it that way. Hoffman apparently. So I was close.
Yeah, Trevor Hoffman. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great call too. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Jeff,
so
you
Ryan,
want to take this next one here?
Yeah. So how did you get into fantasy football? As a kid or whenever you started?
Yeah. So no, actually, I wasn't even a football fan growing up, honestly. I'd watch the Super Bowl or catch a game here or there or whatever, but didn't have a favorite team and honestly still really don't. When I started, I'm a teacher, and when I started my teaching career, I teach in elementary school, so it's mostly females. And when I started, there was one other male teacher, so we kind of ended up bonding, hanging out, becoming friends. And he would always talk about his dynasty league, his fantasy football league. And I had never played fantasy football. Of course, I knew what it was. I was familiar with it, but I had never played. And the more I heard him talk about it, the more I wanted to give it a shot, because everything that he was talking about, making trades and draft picks, those all sounded like, I mean, those were parts of the off season that I was interested in. And even though I wasn't an NFL fan, I love the NFL draft, even though, I mean, I'm still kind of that way with the NBA. Like I won't really watch a single NBA game all season, maybe until the finals, but I love the draft and I love free agency. I just love that team building aspect. And when I figured out that that's really what fantasy football and specifically what Dynasty really was, I was hooked from the get-go. So eventually I got into his league. He always told me about his college buddy league, and branched out from there. Started joining more leagues, found some, and we're talking about just about 20 years ago. I think it was like 02, 03, something like that. So this was pre-Twitter. This was pre all of this stuff, right? But found some message boards, found football guys, and that really, really kind of sold me on what this was, and just kind of grew from there as far as adding leagues and continuing to be active in them.
I have a bad habit of jumping around on this whole thing. You mentioned the football guys and that being your start. How did DLF become DLF? Because you guys are probably one of the most, if not the most influential websites out there for Dynasty Twitter.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So DLF was started about 15 years ago. I probably should know the exact date. Don't kill me on that one. But three friends, Ken Moody, Ken Kelly, and Jeff Haverlack, all buddies up in the northwest part of the country. We're Dynasty players, and we're kind of having this probably the same conversation a lot of Dynasty players were having at that point 15, 20 years ago of, we love playing Dynasty, but there's just not much out there as far as content, as far as resources. We can't, maybe we can't even find rankings. So they basically decided to give it a shot themselves and to build this out of nowhere. And they did that. And like a lot of things, it was a slow build. Thanks, Bob, there with the save, 2006. It was a slow build. It grew slowly. Now we're posting multiple articles and podcasts and tools and rankings. But if you go back to 2006, maybe there was one article a week. And I think a lot of people that are getting into this space now want to go from 0 to 60. And that's, for some people that's what happens, and that's great if it does. But for most, I don't think that's the reality. So for DLF, it was a slow build. It was, I think it was 7 years before they moved from a free site to a premium service. I've talked to some people who are starting a brand new website, and they're going to have a premium service. Again, maybe that works out. I really hope it does, but that's, it's not always as easy as it looks. So, so I joined DLF in 2012 as a member corner writer, which basically meant I wrote for free, and then kind of moved my way up into a writer position, a senior writer position, and honestly, just kind of the same story as when I started playing Dynasty. I was one of the most active people around, whether it was starting in a small college buddy league or on a football guys forum or writing for DLF. I just tried to stay active and kind of earn my keep, and that's what happened.
I like that, because we are in a world of instant gratification. We all want things to happen right away, and unfortunately, like you said, yeah, great, that works for some people. It does happen. However, that is the grind. There's a lot of people that have to start from the bottom and build it. When you came in 2012, you said it kind of started, Bob, through that number of 2006. So you were kind of in that, wasn't quite taking off yet, but it was on the verge of taking off with DLF. Was there any frustrations on your end? Like, you could see where this was going. This is a product that the community needed, because it definitely did not have that Dynasty cornerstone in place at that time. And was there a time where you're just kind of like, oh, man, can I keep going with this? Like, is this something that's going to move forward? Or like, what were some of those thoughts in your head? Like, because at some point, doubt had to slide into everyone's mind when they start something from scratch. Or was it always like, you know what, this is going to work. We know it's going to work. We're doing the right things. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky in the position I was in, because like you said, I was brought in after they kind of went through all of that tough period, that grind of doing everything themselves. I mean, for a long time, it was just those three guys. It was our three founding partners running the site, doing everything. And I mean, you guys know how that is. You're doing the same thing as far as you're writing everything, you're editing everything, you're figuring out graphics, you're doing podcast stuff. I mean, those three guys were doing it all. So even though it was 6 years from the time the site was established until I came on, I was still, I think I was the second or third writer that they brought on. So for a long time, it was just those three guys. And we've certainly grown since that time. But again, they had kind of established that presence in the community. And, now there's tons of Dynasty sites and Dynasty podcasts and everything. But at that point, they had kind of established themselves as the top, because really they were the first all Dynasty site, at least the first one that I know of. Good question, Lewis. We almost snuck one in last week, and then I don't know, a bull rush there that Lewis is asking about. I don't know what happened. We had one planned and it didn't take off, so we'll see soon, hopefully.
I love that. And I kind of want to go back to your when you jumped into fantasy football, that's kind of unique that you jumped in directly to a Dynasty league. That typically, somebody starts in the redraft area, and then, eventually they progress into that Dynasty league. What, have you done the opposite? Like, do you spend a lot of time in, doing redraft leagues ever? Or do you is it just strictly Dynasty leagues for you?
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, it is, of course, I play in Scott Fishbowl, and sometimes I'm asked to do some other charity leagues or things like that, which I'm always glad to do. But for the most part, it's Dynasty for me. And I think for a lot of people, once you get to that point, and like you said, you start in redraft and maybe you play a few years in that. But once you get to Dynasty, usually that ends up taking over as far as your preference. So I feel like I really just skipped that whole step, and I'm kind of glad I did, honestly.
Well, you're not wrong. It's like you're always looking for that next fix when it comes to fantasy football. And we've watched it evolve from our forefathers picking out the newspaper, doing the stats for a standard league, to now a dynasty league, to Superflex, to 2QB, to IDP. We've watched this evolution of fantasy football and how it's branched off in multiple directions. So it's been kind of fun to sit back and watch this, especially someone who's, as yourself, who's in it, what we're saying, 2003 probably, give or take, when you joined the league. We're going to come back to this conversation here in a second, but we got the draft coming up, and I got to know, how would you fare at the combine if the combine was going? If Ryan McDowell was in his shorts, because I see you as a short kind of guy there. Would you hit that 40? Would you dominate the 40? Would you kill the interview? Are you a 3-cone guy?
Man, if we're talking right now, it would be ugly on all accounts. But man, if I could go back to my prime, I would do okay. I was a runner in high school and college, so I don't think I would keep up with some of these wide receivers, but I'd do okay if I could go back in time. Right now, oh man, no, not good. I would have to hope I do well in that interview process.
Yeah, I think that was somebody else's. I think it was Bob Harris said that the interview would be the part that he would just crush. Like that would be his.
Oh, Bob definitely would. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's not a professional athlete, but let's just say you don't run into the guy there working with you, and you don't get bit by this fantasy football bug that so many of us are. What do you think that passion would be for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't really know. I've always been a collector of things, like a lot of people, and this is getting big again, but like a lot of people, at least in my age group, it was all about baseball cards growing up. And then that kind of hit again in, I don't know, I guess the early 2000s maybe, and now it's hitting again. I don't know if I would have lasted with that, but I just feel like I've always enjoyed collecting things. And now I kind of collect dynasty teams so I don't know. I definitely it would have involved something as far as keeping up with a collection.
So Ryan, now that the 2021 season is over, the Super Bowl happened yesterday. What do you have in store for this offseason? What are your plans?
It's funny. A coworker today said, now that the Super Bowl is over, are you done? Are you done with football? And I mean, you guys all know, and everyone listening knows, we're never done. Right now, it's just on to the draft. It's on to free agency, and of course, we've got a ton of stuff working at DLF. We've got some new tools we're working on releasing, hopefully very soon. So yeah, it's, it just never really stops. I was trying to think the other day about the last time that I went a day without tweeting or, without having some conversation. And it's probably not a good thing, probably not something I should bring up, but I can't remember the last time. So maybe I need to sneak in some off days in there, but in general, we're just going to keep going. I have not, and this, it was especially true this year with COVID and the weird schedules and everything, but I feel like I've kind of been drifting away from college football a little bit. So, which is probably true for a lot of dynasty players, just that they get to this point of the year and now they think, okay, now I need to figure out what this class is like. And a lot of people, you guys talked about Ray and so many others they have that head start on us, right? They already know everything about all of these guys, but I'm kind of on the other end of it now. I feel like a little bit that I need to catch up. I need to watch some clips and read up on some of these guys. So that's going to be a big part of the process for sure.
Well, we always joke. There's football season, there's draft season, and then there's dynasty season. It's one collective thing. One leads into the other. There is no off season anymore. And then once you think you're about to get that off season, then all of a sudden you hit training camp season, and then those real keen eyes are trying to find these camp battles and who's performing here, who's going to be the next James Robinson, who's coming and going, and that's always the funnest part about it all, is trying to try and be that guy ahead of the curve. And of course, you can't get ahead of the curve if you don't have a good community around you, those that you respect and that you work with. Obviously, there's some great people that you work with. DLF is loaded from the top down. You've seen great content creators and writers come from DLF and go on to bigger and better things. Who are some of those guys that who have helped you along the way get to where you are, and some of those others that you respect a great deal, that not just, not just for fantasy advice, but real life advice? Because one thing I've noticed about this community is sometimes the community can be closer to you as a friend than actually your friends are. It seems like you can confine into people you've never met on Twitter easier than someone you've grown up with your whole life. So you got those kind of relationships out there?
I do. And I feel really fortunate to have those. And, honestly, I mean, DLF has been great to me. The Twitter fantasy football community in general has been welcoming and supportive of me. And it's really pretty awesome to see. But I totally agree with you, Matt, that I feel like some of the relationships and friendships that I've made through this hobby, some of those people have become some of the best friends I have. And I have been fortunate to meet several of them. Eric Dickens comes to mind for sure. Eric is one of the partners at DLF as well. He runs the DL football account on Twitter. Eric was the one who reached out to me and offered me a writing position at DLF, and has become a good friend. I've gotten to meet Eric multiple times in person, which has been great. Scott Fish, of course, everybody knows Scott and all the great things that he does. It took way too long, but I finally got to meet Scott last summer. My family had we had Disney plans, and like so many other plans, those got canceled, and the cabin fever finally set in, and we decided just to take off on a road trip. And it really kind of became a football road trip, but we met up with a lot of people. Nick Whalen and Dan Myler. We met up with Eric Dickens again, and I'm probably leaving some people out, but chief among them, I got to meet Scott Fish for the first time in person. And I mean, it felt like we were old friends chatting. It did not feel like meeting somebody for the first time. But Scott's done so much for me personally, just like he's done so much for the entire fantasy community. And really, it's not a over exaggeration to say for the entire country with the work that he's done. Yeah, I mean, there's so many more. Matt Williamson, my co-host on Locked On. I got to meet Matt at the Combine last year. That was a great experience. The first time I got to go there. And I was, before Dynasty Blueprint started, I hated doing podcasts. I did not have a podcast of my own. I had no interest. And, Matt, if guys like you sent me a message and said, hey, will you come on the podcast tonight, I would come up with a reason that I could say no. Just was not my comfort zone at all. And really, honestly, it's still not. But Matt Williamson kind of pulled me out of that and said, we're doing the show and it's going to be good. And I think it's been pretty good overall. We're going on 4 or 5 years now of doing that. But yeah, I mean, really, there's so many more great people that I've been able to meet and have become good friends with.
I would definitely say that was a good move for you, and glad Matt pulled you out of the out of the dark there and into the podcast world. And you mentioned the Dynasty Blueprint, and I think one of the most interesting things that I've seen from you is you are so good with talking about these strategies. And like, I know one of the ones that is so interesting to so many people is the productive struggle strategy. And just kind of curious, like when you're thinking about strategy, or maybe even just talk about that one and why, I think I read that that's one that you like it a lot as well. But what is it about the strategy of Dynasty that makes it so intriguing?
So I think one thing is there's no one right way to play Dynasty, right? There's several ways, many ways that can lead to success, that can lead to fantasy titles. And I think that's one of the really appealing things about playing Dynasty in general. But for me, the productive struggle was an article I wrote in 2014. And basically at that point, I was kind of trying to figure out what my exact strategy was. A lot of times I was going into drafts, not quite blind, but kind of close to blind, and just saying, yeah, that I like this guy, or, things like that, things that a lot of Dynasty players maybe still do. And around that time, I was really developing this strategy that it was really based around losing early and being okay with losing. And I was okay with that. I'm drafting young players. I'm building my teams around wide receivers. I'm trading for extra rookie picks in the future. And ideally by year 2, I'm ready to compete. And that had worked pretty well. And then at the end of the school year, again, I'm a teacher. At the end of the school year, one year, we're in this training. The school year is just wrapped up. We've said goodbye to students. And guys, this is probably pretty apparent, but the last thing a teacher wants to do is go to a training at that point in the school year. So I don't think any of my coworkers were getting anything out of this presentation, unfortunately. But the speaker mentioned an educational term called productive struggle. And I grabbed my notebook and started writing because I knew that's what I did, right? It made total sense that, yes, I was struggling, but I had a goal in mind. I had a plan, and hopefully that plan led to me being productive and me being competitive. Now I'd say if you go back and read that productive struggle article, it's definitely changed over the years. A lot of it was based on punting running backs, and that's because if you look at the running back options in 2014, they were pretty ugly. It was pretty gross. That has definitely changed over the past few years with some of the running backs that have come into the league. So the productive struggle strategy would have changed a little bit, and honestly, I think a lot of the pieces of it have become kind of the norm as far as building around those young players. I mean, basically everybody wants to build around those young players. Everybody wants to acquire future draft picks. Not everybody is okay with losing in that first year, and I understand that part. But the thing is, you don't have to. You can still take those young players, because we've seen the average age of top 24 running backs and wide receivers. It's basically decreasing every single year. Younger players are becoming more productive early in their career. So it's undergone some changes, I would say. We've got a productive struggle, kind of an update several years out now. I guess 7 years out, actually. That'll be on DLF very soon.
That's great to hear. I know that's an article a lot of people getting into the dynasty leagues look to right away, and it's kind of stood that test of time. We're in 2021, and now we're revamping it, like, to kind of catch up. That's just saying something how the foundation of that article kind of came from, and how it still holds up that test of time. I'm going to go back here a little bit. Speaking of test of time, when you go on your fantasy road trip and you meet all these guys for the first time, it is in the typical male nature. If you go to high school, a high school reunion, or meet some high school buddies, automatically you are transported back to high school. It doesn't matter if everyone's a doctor or what it is. You go around and I don't know, whatever stupid things you did. Like I know when I got together with my buddies from high school, my wife looked at me like, who is this guy? Because you go automatically right to wherever you were, grade 12. Or the 12th grade, or whatever you want to call it, you go right back there. When you go on this fantasy trip and you're meeting Waldman and Fish and whoever, you may never have met him before, but the interactions on Twitter, knowing that the connection with fantasy football, Is it like going right back to high school with these guys, even though you've never met them?
There's definitely a comfort level for sure. And it does kind of feel like that, like I said, with Scott, and it's really, it's been that way with almost everybody I've had the fortune to meet, because we're getting to know each other on Twitter, right? We're getting to know each other in leagues that we play, or in group chats, or whatever. So even though you might not have met someone in person, when you actually do get that chance, yeah, there's already that comfort level. You've kind of already gone through the formalities of getting to know each other. So yeah, when you get to hang out, it's like, okay, let's talk football, or let's talk life, or whatever.
And it's great because you know the person, you've before you've really interacted with someone, you've kind of done your homework on that person.
Yeah.
In the sense, you've read their tweets, you've read their articles, you kind of know the way their mind is thinking and how it kind of relates to your mind. And it has influenced the way you write. So when I read an article of yours, even though we don't think exactly the same, the thought process that I've read in your writing affects the way that I write going forward. So it's almost like whether you've actually talked to the person, you've already kind of made that connection through the writing. And I think that's a really interesting thing when it comes down to it, right? So I'm going to go, what is that one piece of advice, though? That one piece of advice for someone trying to cut their teeth in the industry right now. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they're banging their head against the wall. Or maybe they're just thinking about putting pen to paper. What's that one piece of advice that you'd have for them right now?
Yeah, I don't know if I can narrow it to one. What you just said made me think of one that unfortunately I don't do a great job of. I need to do better, and maybe the off season is a good time for that. But if you want to become a better writer, read, and not just fantasy content, but as much as you can get your hands on. So I know when I'm able to take more time to read, especially if it is fantasy related. I kind of get inspired to write even more. So that's a part of it specifically for the writing piece, but in general, just kind of breaking into the space and trying to build your place. It goes back to what I said, even when I started in that league, even when I'm posting on the Football Guys forums, just be active. There is no, well, again, I shouldn't say there is no, but it's very rare to kind of gain that place in any industry, in any community overnight. So be active, get yourself noticed in a good way for good reasons. Try to build those relationships. All of those things are certainly important. And then just kind of, know your limits, I would say. I think a few years ago, I was trying to do it all for DLF, right? I was trying to do commish stuff, and I was doing pods, and I was the Devy guy, and I tried to do everything to help DLF. And every time somebody asked me a fantasy question, I wanted to know the answer. People would ask me IDP questions, and I'm not an IDP guy at all. I played in an IDP league one time, and it just, it just wasn't my thing. I wasn't very successful at it. But when people would ask me IDP questions, instead of saying, I don't know, or instead of saying, go ask Tom Kislingberry, I would go find the answer. I would go ask somebody else just so I could answer that question. And I finally realized I don't have to do that. Like, it's okay to not know the answer. And I said earlier that I kind of taken a step back from deving college football. And that's kind of where that started. Like, I can't do it all. None of us can do it all. So, pick those things you're good at, pick those things you enjoy, and really focus on those.
I absolutely love that, because I know I'm guilty of that myself, trying to do everything. And it's taken me a while to put trust into others that can do the job, if not probably better than myself. Let's be honest. And now it's almost like, hey, you know what? You don't need to know all the answers, as long as you know where to find them or who has those answers to go to. For me, it's been kind of like more of a walk by faith and less by sight kind of thing, and just kind of believing it out there. if you would have asked us a year ago if we would have had Ryan McDowell on the show, I would have said no, because I probably would not have reached out and shot that shot, so to speak. This year is like, all right, let's throw it out there and see if we can get him out. And yeah, and funny thing, it's amazing how many people will say yes to coming on a show right now, because that's what the community is about.
Yeah,
but
you could have shot that shot anytime. I'm always glad to jump on to any show and support anybody I can, especially those people I know that are working hard.
But I think you made a good point there. Try not to burn yourself out, because you can get burnt out really, really quick if you try and do everything by yourself in this. And there's so many olive branches around this community that are more than willing to pick you up. So
I love what you said earlier too about not rushing. Because right now, I mean, you probably see this a lot. A lot of Patreons are starting to pop up. You know, everyone's starting their own.
Right.
How many Patreons can other people join?
Yeah.
So much money.
Yeah, Patreon is man, I don't know. It works for some people, and that's great. Obviously it's a lot easier to start a Patreon than it is to build your own website. And I know some people do a really great job with it, but just like anything else, I mean, we've seen it in podcasts, right? Like it's very easy to start a podcast, and because of that, almost everybody has one. And like you said, you can't really support them all. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough, honestly, money in our pocket to join every Patreon out there.
I thought about starting my own Patreon and just have like stash picks, to be honest with you.
Well, that I would join.
That one definitely would be worth joining, no doubt. And there was actually even some chatter in the comment section about Dingus's mustache there. So, yeah, it's I think every time we go back to him, it grows a little bit.
Those comments have to be there every week, every show, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, they're definitely not from the wife. I'll tell you that much right now.
Another bad decision, Matt?
This it's funny. So I talked to the guys over at Brady and Global, and we literally got a T-shirt made up with a viper, a snake, with my mustache on it. And now I'm like, honey, I can't shave it. It's now a thing, but it's who I am. It's got to stay now. So we'll see. I may wake up with half of it missing one morning. So we'll see how that turns out.
Okay, Ryan. So I have a question here, but correct me if I'm wrong. A couple months ago, did you get a different job, or did you get a promotion?
I did get a different job. Yeah. So I've been a teacher for 21 years, mostly third grade, taught fifth grade this year, at least to start the year. And then, just got switched to PE. So I'm now the PE teacher I stayed at the same school, just switch roles. I mean, most people wouldn't consider that a promotion. I think I probably would, at least for my mental health, because it's been a great change for me. I've probably got about 5 or 6 years before retirement. And, honestly, I was starting to wonder if I was even going to make it. Just some of the stresses of that job. But yeah, things are going well. I'm about a month into this new role, and it's been great.
That's good. Now, as the injury analyst for Dynasty Vipers, I have to ask.
Okay.
Have you had to deal with any injuries in the new PE role?
We had one minor injury. Again, I'm in an elementary school, so we got K through 5, and we had an injury at the first grade level, and I think it was mostly emotional, but yeah, no serious injuries yet. We'll hope to keep it that way.
None for you.
None
for me yet. I know my limits.
Those emotional injuries could be more significant than anything. We saw what happened to the Nigerian Nightmare after Steve Atwater laid the lumber to him. That was quite emotional, I'm sure.
Oh man.
I think we talked a little bit about the dynasty leagues, and you talked a little bit about strategy and kind of some talking to people who are kind of coming up into the into the dynasty football world, or just in the fantasy football writing world, or podcasting, or live stream, whatever it is. But where do you think this is going? Like, obviously you started before Twitter was even around, and Twitter comes along and, changes everything really, then podcasting obviously becomes a big thing. And then now we got live streams like this. I was seeing somebody promote their Twitch and their, the Snapchat and all that stuff. Like, where is this ultimately heading, or where do you think the next phase of fantasy football coverage is going?
Yeah. I think that's really kind of what you're leading to there is really, really the answer, because there's so many, platforms, and there in every one of those, whether you want to talk about Twitter or Facebook or Reddit or whatever, they all kind of have their fantasy football community. And and I have a decent following on Twitter, but if you go to Reddit, there's plenty of people who have no idea who I am, and that's not a bad thing at all. That's just, we kind of get in our bubbles, right? And we think that dynasty Twitter and fantasy Twitter is all that matters. But if you go to a message board or Reddit or Facebook, it's like going to a different country. And they have their own, their own opinions, their own folks that they look up to, which is awesome. The good news is that gives lots of people room to grow, right? And there's more platforms like that coming along. Like, I'm forgetting the name of it now, but anyway, I don't know. One of the chat platforms, Discord. Wow, couldn't think of it. There's more and more fantasy Discord channels or dynasty Discord channels. I've been looking into this Clubhouse app or community. I don't know if you guys are involved in that. That's pretty interesting, that there's just real time conversations happening 24 hours a day, basically, about every topic out there, including fantasy football. So, every way that we can talk and communicate about fantasy football is going to continue to grow. And you said it there, Calvin. I don't think we can. Just like I said, you can't master every area of fantasy football. You can't master every platform, right? You can't. I just don't think it's feasible to do YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all these others. So again, you kind of have to pick your battles a little bit.
Well, I love how you mentioned it, because I kind of came across the Facebook crew, and they damn near kicked me out on the spot. It was like
because of the mustache, or
it might have been the mustache. It might have been the fact that I'm like old or something. I don't know what it was, but it's like they could smell the Twitter on me, and they wanted no part of that at all. And it's like that. So I'm kind of curious here. When are we going to see Ryan McDowell in a TikTok video? That's the next evolution here, is it not?
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that one up. That's probably not going to happen. I've got TikTok for recipes. Those have been good. I've got some house, some home, I don't know, working tips. I don't even know what to call them. I'm not handy at all, as you can tell. But no TikTok videos for me. I'll leave that for you, Matt.
Yeah, that ain't happening. I had a hard enough time figuring out Twitter. We have a Facebook account, but it's really my wife's and my friend. I don't know how it works out, but I've never been on there. Unless she needs me to videotape something, then I have to download it, which she just takes my phone and downloads it anyway. So I have really no control over that. I actually created an Instagram account last week, just to reach out to another member of the community. He goes, you know what? It's easier to reach me on Instagram. I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'm like, so created a whole new account just for that interaction. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm on Instagram. This is fantastic. Now what? Like, I'm old. I'm stubborn. I got my one way. I'm set in that way. And Twitter is it. So
Twitter's pretty much it for me too. I've definitely ventured over to Reddit. It's kind of a scary place for me. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to learn there, but they're.
What's your favorite r/what? What do you when you go over to Reddit? What is it?
Oh, I just look at the. I think it's just Dynasty Football or Dynasty FF, but whatever the Dynasty subreddit is. But yeah, it's a tough crowd for sure.
We got other members of the community have been trying to drag me into that Reddit zone, and again, I'm kicking and screaming. It's out of my comfort zone, so I'll stick to where I'm at because I like the people here. The people here in Twitter are fantastic. The ones we get on the YouTube are all from the Twitter and this and that. I don't even know if I want to put another stream out to Facebook because, like I said earlier, they can smell the Twitter on me over there, and it scares me. It really scares me. So I guess the next question is, I was going to let Calvin ask this one, but we all have these leagues of record, so to speak. Either we've done it in the high school buddies or college buddies. It seems to be our oldest, most reliable league we have. Do you have that league, or do you have a new favorite league maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, or is there one that outdates everything? That this, you know what, this is my home league. I'm planting my flag in here. And what makes that league so special?
I kind of feel like I'm in a little bit of a transition time when it comes to that. So I started what became a series of leagues called hyperactive leagues in 2006, and actually just closed those up. So there were 5 leagues and some great people in there, Sigmund Bloom and Matt Waldman and Jeff T. Fertiller, a lot of guys that have been around for a while. And, that for me, and I don't know if everybody that played in those leagues would agree, hopefully not, but for me, those leagues had kind of become stale. That was really before Superflex grew to the popularity that it is now. So they weren't Superflex. They honestly were just kind of plain old leagues. And that just honestly just didn't interest me anymore. So I tried to pass them off. I tried to keep them alive for the sake of everybody else that was still interested in playing, but I think ultimately they're going to fade away. So those were my oldest leagues. They've really been replaced by my kitchen sink leagues. There's also 5 of those, and those just kind of have everything. Hence the name, everything but IDP. Sorry, IDP guys. But their contract, auction, Devi, Superflex, of course, tight end premium, really all of those settings that we like to look for in leagues. I tried to put them all basically in one league, and those have become pretty fun. We have 6 auctions every off season. To me, auctions are the most fun format, most fun way to get players on your team. Drafts are great. Of course, I say that a little biased as the mock draft guy, but auctions are really where it's at for me.
That's fantastic. We'll have to talk a little bit about auctions. I had my first auction experience here not too long ago. I'd love to talk to you about that a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone wants to hear me talk about it right now. Ryan, we're just going to kick right out to the outro here. Can you get us going here? Like, where are you at? Where can we find you? What are you working on? Kind of promote yourself a little bit more. Promote your wife, whatever we got to do. Let's get some promotions going on, and then just cue us out of here.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me again, guys. Great to talk to you, and would be glad to jump back on anytime. You can find my work at Dynasty League Football. And then follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Got a couple of different podcasts going on. DLF Dynasty podcast every week, and also the Locked On Dynasty podcast multiple times every week. And I think that's it. Yeah, and most of our content's just going to be rookie stuff all off season long.
It is draft season right now, so a lot of people got them rookie itches. So if you've got those rookie picks, hold on to them for another couple more weeks because
That's right.
those are going to go up like Doggy and what's that other one? That movie place that went up in value for stocks, GameStop or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're going to want to hold on to them for a little bit, and then you want to get rid of those picks here. So they're going to peak here any day now. So just like that. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh no, yeah, just wanted to thank you again, and I personally really appreciate all your posts. You're actually one of the few people who I have notifications on, because man, I jumped from redraft into a contract dynasty league.
Oh, nice.
This past year, had no idea what I was doing, and all your the depth charts and a lot of the info has been super helpful. So
yeah,
if
man,
anyone
glad.
watching, following Ryan, go do so.
Glad to do that. Appreciate that, Jeff. And hey, I got a spot for you in kitchen sink if you want it.
All right.
And just like that, we've ran out of time here today. Like Dynasty football and fantasy football, it's ever evolving. We've seen the evolution over the last 5-10 years. And Ryan McDowell there with DLF has been a big part of that and watching that evolve, whether it be auction or Devy, Superflex. We've seen that, and DLF has been at the head of all that for many years here. So for Calvin and Hobby, for Jeff Mueller, of course, for our guest here, Ryan McDowell, I'm Matt Dolly, and this is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, and we're